You can have the most beautiful brand image in the world, but if your voice does not match or it is inconsistent, then your brand will feel off and people will not connect with your brand the way that you want them to. Your brand voice is going to always stay consistent. It is the core personality and how you always show up. It is who you are. It is who your brand is. If your brand was a person, how would they talk? Your voice, your unique voice, is what will make you more memorable. It'll be the thing that makes you stand out. Give yourself grace, be patient. Finding and refining your voice takes time, just like it does in your personal life. Hey, and welcome to another episode of Tips Tuesday, where we are talking all things tech for getting your business in gear for a strong closeout to 2025. So, over the last couple of weeks, we have been talking about your brand image, focusing specifically on logos, colors, fonts, and all of those visual elements of your brand. This week, we are actually diving into the other half of the brand equation, and that is your brand voice. Now, before I dive into all of that, let me just say if you have not done this already, please consider subscribing to the Studio 117 Creative YouTube channel. And also, if you are not already on our email newsletter list, then make sure you check out the link in the description so that you can get these messages delivered to your inbox weekly. All right. Now, you have heard me talk about this already. I have said it time and time again that you can have the most beautiful brand image in the world, but if your voice does not match or it is inconsistent, then your brand will feel off and people will not connect with your brand the way that you want them to. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your brand voice and how it is the way you communicate across all of your platforms, defining your voice so that you understand the personality, values, and audience, and then consistency in your voice, building trust and recognition. You can do this as a DIY, and I'm going to walk you through it in this video, or you have an option to have the studio create your brand voice guide customized specifically for your brand. So let's dive into it. So, your brand voice is basically your brand's personality expressed through words. It's how you show up in every caption, every blog post, every email newsletter, and even every face to face conversation if you're interacting with your audience in that capacity. So, if you think about brands that you follow and love, I bet that you can hear their voice in your head. And I'd be willing to bet that you might even have a little bit of Delulu going on and saying something like, oh, that's my best friend in my head. That's the power of a well defined brand voice. So, when we talk about understanding the voice versus the tone, let's go into that, right? Your brand voice is going to always stay consistent. It is the core personality and how you always show up. It is who you are. It is who your brand is. So your tone adjusts based on the situation, and it's how you actually express your voice in different contexts, right? So here's an example if I use the studio as an example. Now, just to give you an understanding, my brand voice is the way that I want my brand to show up is warm, straightforward, knowledgeable, supportive, and real. So, my tone adjustments, for example, in a celebration email, are going to be excited, enthusiastic, energetic. But if I'm addressing a serious issue with a customer, I'm direct, calm, and solution focused. But in a tutorial, I'm more patient and encouraging and taking things step by step. In a casual social media post, it's more playful, conversational, relatable. But the difference is the core value or the core voice stays the same. I'm me all the time, but the tone is what shifts to match the moment. Okay. So let's talk about how to define your brand voice and let's get practical here. I want you to ask yourself these questions to define your brand voice. If your brand was a person, how would they talk? So close your eyes and imagine that your brand walked into a room. How would your brand introduce itself? Is it going to be formal and polished or casual and relaxed? serious and authoritative, or more fun and playful, direct and to the point, or warm and conversational? Right. So, and it can be any mix of these things or any other adjectives that you can think of or come up with that defines your brand voice. But what I want you to do is write down 3 to 5 adjectives that describe how your brand sounds, how you want it to sound, if it's not already sounding that way. The next piece, which this piece is really important, I want you to think about, what do you want people to feel when they interact with your brand? Your voice should trigger specific emotions. So I want you to think about, do you want people to feel empowered and confident? Do you want them to feel understood and supported? Maybe you want them to feel excited and inspired, safe and reassured, entertained and engaged. Your voice should naturally create these feelings through your word choices, the sentence structure, and just the overall tone that you are using. So this is the second part of what I want you to think about, is what you want people to actually feel when they interact with your brand. Then I want you to think about, who exactly are you talking to and how do they talk? Your ideal audience's communication style matters. You don't have to match them exactly, but you definitely should be speaking in a way that resonates with them. So the way that you're talking with them should be familiar. If your audience is corporate executives, your voice is probably going to be more professional and polished, versus if your audience is that of a group of creative entrepreneurs, your voice might be more casual and expressive. So look at how your ideal clients communicate in their own spaces. What kind of words are they using? What's their energy like? And this should also help you define the voice that you are using for your brand. The next thing that we want to look at is, what makes your voice unique. So, what can you say, or how can you say things that your competitors can't or don't? So, for Studio 117, my unique voice elements include using phrases like "listen" and "here's the thing." That's just something that I always kind of start out with when I'm explaining something. And so they've just kind of fallen into key identifiers in my brand voice. So, another element for Studio 117 is being real about the messy parts of business, teaching everything I know, the no gatekeeping. In my first video of this series, you saw I had a t-shirt on that said "teach everything you know," and I clearly stated that that is what I firmly believe, is that I want to teach you everything that I know. Making tech feel accessible and not intimidating, because we all, as business owners, have to use tech in some capacity in our business. Sometimes the tech in business is the thing that holds us back, and I want it to feel accessible. I don't want you to be intimidated by it, and I don't want it to stop you from achieving your goals. And then I also like to mix professionalism with just my natural personality. The majority of my career has spanned in corporate environments. And so I have still that very corporate way of doing things, thinking about things, and whatever else, because I do also want to be professional. But I, as a business owner, love the freedom of being able to express who I am and how I speak, and being able to relate to my audience in that capacity. So I want you to think about, what are your signature phrases, your approaches or perspective that makes your voice distinctly yours. And then moving on to the next one, what do you absolutely not want to sound like? Now, one thing I can say, like in my personal life, a lot of what has shaped who I am and what I wanted for myself was not because I always saw examples of what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. I saw the opposite. It forced me to think about what I didn't want to do in order for me to be able to define what I actually did want to do. So sometimes it's easier for you to define what you're not than what you are. So, using again the studio as an example, I don't want to sound overly corporate or stuffy. I don't want to sound condescending or gatekeepy. I don't want it to be too technical or full of jargon when I speak about different tech aspects. And then I don't want fake fake enthusiasm or overly salesy kind of stuff. I'm not a salesperson. I give you the information, I let you make an informed decision. If it doesn't work for you, you're not going to get follow-up emails of, oh, by the way, you absolutely need this and this is why you're failing. I'm just going to meet you where you're at. And if it's no, it's no. That's fine. How else can I help you? And those are the things that make me feel authentic in my brand. What are your voice deal breakers, and what are some words or phrases or styles that just make you cringe overall? Maybe you don't want cursing in your brand voice ever. Maybe you want it to be more corporate than more casual. So, saying certain little slang things like you see some of the local fast food restaurants do and things like that, you would never do in your business. All of those things are important too when you are thinking about what you want your brand voice to sound like. Okay. So, now let's roll into brand voice in action. Let's look at some real examples of how the brand voice can show up in different contexts. So, if we're using the studio as an example, and this first example being for a website homepage, a generic copy on the website homepage may say, we provide comprehensive digital solutions for small businesses seeking to optimize their online presence. No, full stop. That is not how I talk. That is not what I would say in the studio. It is very kind of technical, just not the studio voice, right? So here's the studio voice. Your website should be your hardest working team member. Let's make sure that it's actually doing its job. It's conversational, it's relaxed, it's relatable. Same message, completely different voice, right? If we go to another example of email newsletter, generic voice might say, thank you for your continued patronage. Please review our latest offerings. Definitely not saying that. In the studio voice, it will be, hey, I've been working on something I think you're going to love, want to see what I've been up to. And then in that newsletter, I'm going to go into it and talk about it like I'm talking to one of my best friends because you guys are my business besties. So one feels like a corporate memo, the other feels like a message from a friend, which is the goal, right? So if we go into like a social media caption, generic voice would say, excited to announce our new service offering. Link in the bio for more information. Again, who is this person? Definitely not me. The Studio 117 voice would say, listen, I've been sitting on this for weeks and I'm finally ready to share it with you. The link is in my bio, but also tell me what you think in the comments. So the Studio 117 voice invites conversation and feels like a real person, not just some generic brand account. And then here's the last example, which is responding to a problem. So, inevitably in business, you will come up with some sort of problems, whether you're customer facing or just content facing. Generic voice might say, we apologize for the inconvenience. This matter will be addressed promptly. I mean, that's not terrible, but it's just stuffy. It's just generic. Studio 117, oh no, this should not have happened. Let me jump in and fix this for you real quick. Simple as that. Like you feel heard, I acknowledge that there's a problem, and then I take action on it. Both do that. They acknowledge the problem, but one feels robotic, the other one feels like a human and like someone providing you support. That's the difference. Okay, so let's talk about common brand voice mistakes that I want you to avoid. So, as you're defining and implementing your brand voice, I want you to watch out for some of these things. The first one is going to be trying to sound like everyone else in your industry. Just because everyone in your industry or in your field talks a certain way doesn't mean that you have to. Your voice, your unique voice, is what will make you more memorable. It'll be the thing that makes you stand out. The second thing being inconsistent across platforms. So your voice on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, your email newsletter, they should not sound completely different. The core voice should be recognizable everywhere. It's the tone that just shifts, and the tone shifts for the platform. And we kind of talked about some examples of that already, right? The third one, overthinking it and sounding forced. Your brand voice should feel natural and Like you're not trying too hard. Like this is how I talk. Standing here and recording this video is literally how I talk. I'm over exaggerated. I talk with my hands nasally because I got a cold coming on. Like this is what I sound like. If you called me on the phone, this is exactly how I would sound. Mistake number four is forgetting that your voice can evolve. So as we get older, as we grow up, the way that we talk, the way that we communicate probably has changed over time. The same thing is allowed to happen for your business. Like your baby business is going to talk differently than your adolescent business, right? So as your business grows and changes, know that your voice can too. Don't feel like you are locking yourself into something that no longer serves you. Just like you can evolve as a person, your business can evolve as well. So this is your voice for right now. But as you grow, or if you shift the way that you do business, or even who you are doing business with, it may mean that you need to redefine your brand voice. And that's totally allowed. Okay. And then the biggest mistake, the last one, is not documenting it. So it's okay for you to have it in your head, but that's not the only place it should be. I want you to be consistent. Consistency, we've talked about in several of these videos, is the name of the game. And it's impossible to be consistent if you don't have it documented somewhere. If you are working with a team, collaborators, virtual assistants, you need to be able to give that information and share your voice with those people that are working with you. And again, that's just a point of growth. Like at some point, you're going to need help, you're going to want help, and you're going to want it to be easy to transition and give to someone else as opposed to like having to hold it close to your chest because nobody does it right. If you have your brand voice documented, it opens up the door for people to be able to help you. So write it down. So let's talk about how to stay consistent with your brand voice. The way that you do that is to create some sort of documentation. It doesn't have to be like something long, drawn out, and elaborate, but you should have it documented somewhere. There should be some sort of guidelines that if you are hiring somebody to help you, or even if you are using AI, you can tell it, like, this is my brand voice, this is how I talk. Draft this using my brand voice. That's one of the biggest hacks to defining your brand voice. So many people are trying to use AI and they say, hey, create this thing for me. When they get it back, it sounds so generic. They're like, I would never use these words, et cetera, et cetera. If you have a brand voice guide, you can have it uploaded into whatever your AI companion is that you use, and you can tell the AI tool to actually use your voice. It will then generate content that is more relatable and that resonates with you and your people. Draft the guide. Draft the guide. That's all I'm saying. Then the other thing in terms of staying consistent with your brand voice is going to be to review your content before publishing. You should always kind of stop and ask yourself, does this sound like me? Does this sound like my brand? Is this giving off what I intend? And would my audience recognize this as my voice? If you answer no to any of that, then it's time to edit. It's time to go back and look at where you're missing the mark. The other thing is sharing your guide with anyone who creates content for you. This includes your VAs, any designers, collaborators, anyone that you are working with that you need to maintain your voice for consistency. This is why it is important, again, that it is documented so that you can share it. And then also going back and auditing your existing content just to see periodically, are you in line with how you want to sound? So, looking at your website, your social media captions, emails, does it all feel cohesive or is it starting to feel disjointed? If that disjointed feeling is settling in on you, then it may be time to kind of tweak some things and look at where you need to make adjustments. And then the last thing is just give yourself grace, be patient. Finding and refining your voice takes time, just like it does in your personal life. We don't all just show up in the world and be able to use our voice and advocate for ourselves and talk and speak for ourselves. It's kind of the same thing with your brand voice. It's going to take time. You're going to have to polish it a little bit. You're going to have to see, like, does this feel how I intend for it to feel? And then it will evolve into what you want it to be. It'll become more clear and it'll clearly serve the people that you intend for it to serve. Okay. So we always kind of wrap up with some action steps for you to take. We kind of touched on these already, but I'm going to go over them again real quick. I want you to write down 5 to 7 adjectives that describe how you want your brand to sound. Then I want you to look at your last 10 social media posts or emails or even blog posts if you're creating content and ask yourself, do these reflect those adjectives? Look at where are you on brand and where are you off? And if it's content that you can edit, go in and edit it. Look at it side by side, a before and after. If you don't have anything to compare, then you really don't pay attention to where you've come from and how far you've grown. Look at before and afters of your content. Like, this is what I wrote before. This is what I'm writing now. How do they feel? How did I grow? Is this more aligned? So I want you to kind of be going back and auditing some of your content to see if it reflects the adjectives that you chose for your brand. And then here, I want you to create a simple brand voice document. I want it to include those characteristics that we talked about, the adjectives that you chose, words and phrases that you absolutely love to use, words and phrases that you absolutely must avoid and don't want to use, and then 2 to 3 examples of your voice in action. Now, these examples are going to come from new content that you're creating using this voice, and I want you to document them in your brand voice document so that you can go back and be like, oh yeah, this is kind of the blueprint for how I want my stuff to sound. So it's a work in progress, but you need at least those things in your brand voice document so that you can have consistency across the board. Then I want you to share your guide with anyone who helps you create content or someone that you know knows your brand or is near and dear with your brand, and see if they can see the difference and give you any tips or pointers. Okay. In the event that you want help defining your brand voice, I am always here to help you in the studio. Listen, I believe in teaching you how to do everything for yourself because some things we just don't have the budget for, or we feel like we can do it better, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So my whole thing in this video has been to show you how you can document your own brand voice. But in the event that you're like, this sounds great, but I don't have the time, the energy, the clarity, or I just don't want to do it, get in touch. I've got you. I can help you get that done. I will create a comprehensive guide that is totally customized to your brand that will have all of these things that we talked about and more. And you can use it to do all of the things that we talked about, training people to create content for you, using it with your AI tool of choice, and even just using it to go back and check content that you have created for yourself. Okay. If you're not sure if this is something that you want to do, or if this is something you completely understand, you can book a strategy call. We can talk through it. Or if you know that you just want to book and get your brand voice guide, I'll have all the links for that in the description box. Okay. So coming up next week, I always like to close out sharing what we got coming up. We're going to be moving into the second pillar of the series, which is going to be websites. So we're going to be talking about making sure that your website is actually working for you and not against you, and what you need to do to make sure that it's doing that. If you have any questions about the brand voice, feel free to drop them down in the comments or shoot me an email. And until next week.